watching a lot of westerns lately. Recently I got sick, so I couldn't do much except lay in bed and watch movies. And that kind of reinvigorated every man's subtle interest in westerns and western guns. At least an interest I think every man has or should have. Specifically, in this revolver, the Remington Model 1858. Now, from what I understand, this was only patented in 1858. Production never really ramped up until 1861. That being said, I can't date the specific revolver. The only things on the barrel are, I'm not sure if I can pick it up, just the regular patents found on these types of revolvers. This is an original, and this is an Army model, so it's caliber 44. Navy models were 36 caliber, and pocket models were 31, from what I can understand. Now, to show clear is actually a bit of a process on this particular firearm. It took me a while to figure it out the first time. Take this out, wiggle it a bit, cock it back, swing the cylinder out. Oh gee, it seems I've left it loaded. That's the snap cap. Now, the story behind this firearm is it was an original black powder firearm, as you can tell, and I think it was restored in the 1800s, 1870s probably, to fire metallic cartridges, likely 46 rimfire, if it was done officially by Remington. And the previous owner said it wasn't that good in that capacity. It had a lot of struggles. So he had it converted to fire 45 ACP. And in this you can see 45 auto. Now, of course, 45 auto is a little spicier than 46 rimfire, being a smokeless round. So he loaded them very lightly, very light smokeless loads. And he said he fired it quite a bit without too much trouble, but eventually the cylinder, he determined, was not safe to shoot, just too far warm to be adequately used. So I got it for very inexpensively. Let's see if I can get this back in. I think I've done something wrong here. There we go. However, the rest of it is still in pretty beautiful condition, I'd say. Obviously the finish is quite worn, but rust is very minimal, and surface rust at that. Wood grip is still in good shape, very light dings and scrapes. And the brass still has some shine to it. Action is what impresses me the most. If you spin it, sometimes it doesn't index properly. You gotta shake it before you can unlock it again. It spins freely, and then on full lockup, very, very little play. I've determined that it has as much play, if not less, than this new production Heritage Rough Rider Rancher, which I've recently repaired. Now, some historical data about this firearm. It was used quite extensively in the Civil War. Over 200,000 were made by most estimates. And it was stronger than contemporary Colt designs because of this top strap. If you think of a Colt model revolver from the same period, the cylinder would be the top of the firearm. There wouldn't be a strap like this across the frame. That allows for heavier loads, meaning higher velocity, meaning higher power. Now, these are, I would imagine, quite a bit heavier than a Colt design, perhaps a little less ergonomic to shoot. But they did catch on, and There's a reason there's so many reproductions of them today. Of course, according to Canadian law, those would be considered restricted firearms, whereas this antique is not a firearm at all, even though, of course, it still goes bang. I mentioned that I garnered an interest from this firearm from Western movies, which is puzzling because this actually isn't represented very well in Westerns, from what I can tell. The only two movies I could find that depict this firearm in any meaningful capacity are Pale Rider and Django Unchained. Pale Rider, of course, being an Eastwood film where he demonstrates way better than I can the novel ability for this thing to change cylinders with relative ease. See, I can't do it near as well as he did. The idea is you'd have a second cylinder, stick it in, fumble with it, and that would be way faster than reloading each cylinder individually, because remember, these were originally muzzle loading firearms. And yeah, I'm quite happy I've managed to acquire this, since I was born too late to get a restricted license and handgun, so this is the next best thing, and if it isn't an interesting piece of history, I don't know what is. I would really like to get this restored one day. However, I don't think that's on the agenda for quite a while. I'd have to find a gunsmith who could either repair this cylinder or source a new one, and I wouldn't quite know where to source one. And if I did, I would have to just go with what the cylinder is. If it was an original muzzle-loading cylinder, well, then this would be a muzzle-loading firearm once again. But if it was a cartridge cylinder, then it would be restricted to whatever cartridges are deemed antiques by the Canadian government. I couldn't convert this to .45 Colt, for example, because that's not on the exempted calibers list. Hence why this was converted into such an odd cartridge as .45 Auto. I could, in theory, convert it to .44 Russian, I believe. I'm not sure the bore diameter is the same, but perhaps that's an option. I'll have to look into it. But as for now, it's just a neat piece of my collection and a conversation starter. And of course, it is fun to pretend to be a cowboy in my bedroom. But yeah, funny anecdote related to me buying this firearm is I couldn't find a pistol case big enough to house it, so I've been keeping it in this maximum tool case, I think it is, of some sort. And it's served the job quite well. That'll be all for now. Hopefully one day I can get this out and shoot it. But until then, so long for now.